Hi, it's Cummins with S&B Tanks, and today we're going to be installing this 52-gallon fuel tank on this 2019 Ram 2500. This fits all 4th gen Ram crew cab short bed trucks, and today it's going to be installed on a 2019. Well, first, if you already purchased an S&B tank, thank you. And you got one of these cards in your package. Instead of listening to me and watching the video, go ahead and just scan the card with your smartphone. It's going to pull up the instructions on our website, and that has the most up-to-date instructions. We are shooting this video right when we're releasing the tank. Then we listen to your feedback, and when we can make our instructions better, we update our instructions on our website to make them better, and that is done by the minute. So scan the card and watch the instructions there. Your S&B tank comes with 2 new straps, a new O-ring, a new float for the sending unit, a locking ring to lock your sending unit down into the tank. Then to install your tank, you're going to need a crowbar, a mallet, a 5/16 nut driver, as well as a 16mm socket, as well as an extension for the socket. If you have access to a lift, go ahead and use it. You won't have to crawl into the truck. Just make sure when you do line up your lift that you're not imposing on the tank space, because our tank does come up pretty close to the frame rails. Then if you don't have a lift, no big deal. Just make sure you can slide your S&B tank underneath the running boards on your truck, and then you can do the install from the ground. Instead of removing the wheel liner and accessing the fill hose at the filler neck and disconnecting it that way, we're going to try to save some time and disconnect the filler and the vent hose at the tank. So we're going to drop the tank a couple inches and see if we can slide our hands in there and disconnect the lines on the tank itself. So I ran this truck pretty much empty, so I'm not going to siphon any fuel out or drain any fuel out, but if your tank is full, it's a good idea to do so. So the first step is positioning our transmission jack underneath the tank. Then we are going to disconnect or undo the bolt here on the front strap, as well as the bolt here on the rear strap. And make sure you do have something underneath the tank, because you still have your electrical connector, your feed, your return, as well as the fill and the vent hoses attached to the tank. So if you don't have anything underneath here, those lines are probably going to snap. To get the strap out on the frame side, it's hooked into there, so you need to lift up, and then you have to pull out. So it's a little tricky, so push it up, then pull it out. So we are going to loosen up that hose clamp right there, and we are going to remove the fill hose. Then next we're going to disconnect the hose clamp on this vent pipe right here. So it's hard to see, but the hose clamp is back here, right where my finger is. So you can access that either on the frame side, but I'm going to stick my nut driver in here, and I'm going to loosen up the hose clamp on top of there. We're going to show you how to disconnect the feed and the return line from the sending unit before or after we drop the tank, because it's easier to show you how those clips work. But you want to disconnect the feed, the return, as well as the electrical off of the sending unit before you drop the tank, and make sure that the tube on the roller vent on the back of the tank, that's disconnected as well. That's just a bar fitting you're going to want to pull out. We'll show you how that works after we drop the tank. So to disconnect the feed and the return lines from the sending unit when you have the truck up, you want to pull this blue tab out. Then there, you want to depress the button on the side. You want to depress that really hard. Then you need to apply some pressure and pull out on it. Sometimes it comes off right away. Sometimes it takes you 5-10 minutes. But be careful not to break it. And this is the electrical connector we disconnected. So you want to pull the red tab out. So it's pressed in. We pulled it out with a pick. Then you just want to press the button and pull out. Push the button and just pull out. And again, the last thing we did before dropping the tank is we disconnected this tube from the barb fitting on the tank. So we just pulled the tube out. And then we also disconnected the def lines from the tank. So those were just in here, and then we just released them. You just want to make sure that you disconnect these DEF lines from the tank, then it'll be free to drop. Next, we're going to begin transferring the OEM sending unit over to the S&B tank. First, we need to release the locking ring that is holding down the sending unit into the OEM tank. So we're going to hit this counterclockwise. Lift this up. You're gonna wanna pour as much fuel out of the bucket as you can so you don't create a mess. And you're gonna get the sending unit out of the tank. Next, we're gonna remove the OEM float. We're not gonna be reusing this OEM float. So you can see how it's connected. It's going into there, so we need to disconnect it out of there, and we're gonna pull it away. And pull out. We won't be using this again. And next, we're gonna connect the S&B float to the OEM sending unit. And to do that, you're gonna press the wire in to that hole that we just removed it out of. Snap it in. And you want to make sure it locks into those tabs. Now we're ready to go. Next, we're going to make sure there's nothing in the tank that got in there during shipping or handling. Then we'll stick our hand in there, make sure we can feel around and everything is clean. Then we're going to put the S&B O-ring into the O-ring groove on the S&B tank. We're going to take your sending unit where you just connected the float to the sending unit, and we are going to extend the float all the way to the top. This is a little trick so you don't have to connect the float while it's in the S&B tank. If you put it up to the top, line up the tab here to the arrow on the S&B tank. You can drop it right in. Make sure that O-ring stays in the O-ring groove. And you can hear the float fall to the bottom of the tank. Carry over your locking ring that's provided to you by S&B. Put it on top of the sending unit. Get it started underneath the teeth that are molded into the tank. Take your crowbar and mallet and lock it down. And you know it's locked down when you see this this dip on the other side of there. So this needs to go underneath that side of the impression. And so it's locked down, it can't move back or forth, and your sending unit is locked into place. Next, to make sure that the O-ring was seated properly and there's no chance for leaks, we're gonna spray soapy water along the O-ring area, and then we're gonna pressurize the tank. So we could put electrical tape over the openings, but we're gonna have my buddy plug these holes there. And I'm gonna see if I can pressurize the tank. If you see the tank starting to bulge, you let some pressure out. Then look around and listen around the O-ring groove. Some air is going to get out from where you're putting in the air, but you can see we don't hear or see any bubbles coming from the O-ring area. And everything looks good. The tank into place, so positioned it onto the transmission jack, and we can begin raising it into place. Next, while I'm on the driver's side of the truck, we're gonna attach this vent onto the bar fitting. So press the hose onto the bar fitting. Then from the driver's side, secure that hose clamp. Next, like how we disconnected the OEM tank from the fill hose on this side, we're gonna do the same here. Make sure the hose clamp is facing towards you, then tighten up the hose clamp on the fill spout on the tank. If you're having trouble getting to the hose clamp while it's while you're on this side, go around to the other side, make sure that the hose clamp is facing you, then tighten it from the top down on the other side. Next, we're gonna connect this rollover vent hose into this bar fitting right here. So just press that in. Next, make sure the feed, the return, as well as the electrical connector are connected back to the top of the sending unit, and the tabs and the locks are locked into place so they can't come loose. Then the strap that has an angle is going to go in the middle, and again, to get the strap attached to the frame, you're going to want to push it through the top part of the frame inside there, and then it's going to fall into place. Press it all the way in, push up on the tank. If you can feel around and see where the hole starts, you can get it to slide into place. After you have your straps connected to the frame side, line the straps up with the studs. You can get the studs started in the hole. You can get the nut on finger tight. Then with your 16mm socket, tighten these straps up. So get this one tight as well as this one tight. After you tighten up both the front and the rear strap, you are done with installing your tank. Now just make sure everything looks good from front to back to the tank. So if you can't see on the top, it's hard to get in or stick your hand in there, especially if you don't have the drive line out. Stick your phone up there and see if there's anything that might not look right. If it's too close to the cab, or if there's a DEF line pinch or something like that. Make sure all those are checked. And then again, we'll start from the front. So you can see we contour around the drive shaft on this front part of the tank so we can get as much fuel without going down. The clearance on the drive shaft looks good. You can see we contour up here as well to get fuel. So clearance looks good. There's clearance around the fuel filter. Both of our nuts are all the way up pressed against the cross members. The straps are nice and tight. Then I'm gonna go up there in a second and make sure all the connectors are connected. I'm gonna stick my phone and take a picture to make sure everything looks good. But other than that, we're done. We'll get the truck dropped in here in a second and give you an overview of what it looks like on the ground. Now that the installation is complete, if you have any questions during your install, or if you have any questions before you purchase your SMB tank, please give us a call. Our number is 909-675-1313. You can call or text us, or if you're in the middle of an install, you can text us some pictures to that number as well, or give us a call and we'd be glad to help you out. But at the time we're shooting this video, it's November of 2019. We are still working on a solution to recalibrate the distance to empty on this truck. We are working on this with EasyLink right now. The fuel gauge is still going to be accurate, but again, to recalibrate the distance to empty, so you know when you have 50 miles till empty or 1,000 miles till empty, we are not able to do that quite yet. We are working on a solution. We're going to show you some quick shots of the tank installed right now. But again, if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.